Good afternoon, everyone, all the attendees. My name is Richard Taylor. I am Vice President here at the Center for Rural Development. We're here in the last mile deployment. What's it going to take to connect Appalachia, Kentucky? So I'd like to begin a little bit with just an overview. The thing is, or one of the biggest components to creating a future in Appalachia is last mile broadband, or broadband in general. And with Kentucky Wired, the middle mile project almost wrapping up, and I won't steal any of your thunder, Jamie, but it's all but done. We need to focus our efforts towards last mile. And the Center for Rural Development's demonstrated a track record of driving technology and various advancements over the decades, equipped with new grant funding from Appalachian Region Commission, specifically for last mile implementation. This is our opportunity to have a discussion around what it's going to take for last mile build out. And with that, let me introduce our panelists here today. So we have Jamie Link, who is Executive Director for Kentucky Communications Network Authority, which we call KCNA. We have David Flessas, who is CEO of Open Fiber, and Open Fiber is the commercial access to this network. And last and certainly not least, Lonnie Lawson, President and CEO of the Center for Rural Development and my daytime boss. So I'm going to, just a little bit of the format, I'm going to start off with some panelist questions, and then I'm going to ask the entire panel to address a question, and then we'll get to the important questions, which is the attendees. And I think Lauren, I'd like to call out Lauren Blankenship and thank her for helping me with these questions that are coming via direct message to my pop-in screen. So first question, Lonnie, tell us about the various programs the center has to support last mile deployments.
Richard, and actually we've been at the forefront of trying to bring high-speed capacity broadband to Eastern Kentucky for many years now, and working in close cooperation with Commonwealth of Kentucky. And in addition to providing, working with the Appalachian Regional Commission and providing funding for the build out of Ring 2 in Eastern Kentucky, we've developed programs now that will actually help speed up the access to last mile. That's going to be one of the most important components. You can have all the middle mile in the world, but if you can't get it to your home, your business, your school, your healthcare facility, then it doesn't do you any good. So that's what we're focusing on now that the construction is done, and Jamie will talk more about that one as we move forward. But so we've developed a couple of really specific programs, one being our technology assistance program, where if communities want to explore what is the right model for their home community, whether that's the community-owned infrastructure or if it's just building out to homes, businesses, schools, we have the ability to do that. We have funding that will allow them to do feasibility studies, that they can hire engineers that can help design the maps and what the routes might look like, all sorts of subject matter experts that they can bring to bear to help them make those informed decisions. We just recently put out an RFP for some other technical assistance experts that we'll be bringing on very, very shortly that will help us as well. And then our staff, Richard obviously has a long history in fiber and telephone services, so his experience has been a great addition to us as well. And then another piece that we're looking at is where we can locate center access nodes throughout our region. So if you've got an area of population that lots of different businesses or lots of different users of broadband need access, then we can actually help offset. And, you know, Dave is going to bring the last mile to you, but if we can help Dave get there quicker and at less cost, then we want to be able to do that as well. So those are just a few of them, Richard.
Okay, thank you so much, Lonnie. And Jamie, if you would give us an overall status at Kentucky Wired. And I am actually trying to get my screen sharing option fixed. Just so everyone knows, I've got a slide of the Kentucky Wired map, and I would love to be able to put it up, but we're working on that. So if you could just give us a few words about the status of Kentucky Wired would be great. You're on mute, Jamie. Oh, he just dropped off. That's not good.
Yes, Richard.
Pivots.
All right. If you would please talk about the timing for go live services and some specific packages that your team is putting together to bring new sites onto the network.
Thanks, Richard. Let me say first, I'm really excited to be participating in the SOAR session. I had an opportunity to go down to the center a couple of weeks ago. Really impressed with the efforts that you guys have underway, and really excited to be part of the Kentucky Wired family. I've got 35 years in the telecom industry. I think the opportunity that is before us in Kentucky is unique, and certainly unique in my experience, to have a greenfield network, state-of-the-art equipment, a fat pipe going to a lot of places that haven't had a fat pipe before is really exciting, and to be able to start, literally with a clean sheet of paper to develop state-of-the-art infrastructure and services is exciting to me personally. And I think when we deliver those services to customers, it's going to be exciting to them as well. Our team.
Can you hear me, Richard?
I can, Jamie. I can.
Our team is just beginning with the completion of the construction part of the project, and with Jamie's cooperation, we are very, very recently, almost real time, beginning the construction, the Open Fiber Kentucky portion of
Richard, are we still connected?
We are, sir. We're connected, and David Flessas is speaking. Can you not see or hear him? Sorry, David.
No worries. I'll
yeah. Keep trucking, Dave.
So Jamie and I are working closely together, despite his propensity.
Richard, can anyone hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can.
You hear me? I can hear you well.
So we are, Open Fiber is just in the next days, literally in the next hours.
I understand Richard can hear me, but I can't see or hear anyone else. But my apologies. I'll start with an update on the Kentucky Wired project. We have installed about 99% of the fiber optic cable.
Should we lose you again, Jamie?
Looks like he's corresponding. Richard, I await your instruction.
Yeah, no pressure, right? So yeah, just keep going, Dave. I'm trying to message Jamie.
Yeah, no worries. So again, we're we are within hours of starting the actual construction process, launching orders to our equipment vendors, beginning the installation of equipment now that the Kentucky Wired network is complete. There are a lot of people working a lot of hours to deliver on the promise of the network, which is exciting. We believe, and again, we're just the concrete has just been poured and is beginning to set on our very detailed project delivery plan. We believe those services will be available in the early second quarter of 2021. So we are, service availability is measured in months, which is exciting. And we are already in the process of fielding a lot of inquiries from not only businesses, but I would say more importantly, communities and other governmental agencies that are looking to connect to the middle mile that we are going to be able to provide. And our team, led by Rich Lockard and his folks, are available to field those inquiries. And as Lonnie said, we can't do it ourselves. We're providing the middle mile. We're looking to interconnect and to connect with whatever the community solution is. But there is a portfolio of 5 or 6 different community solutions, and we're working through the our best efforts and the best way that we can connect to those communities. So that's maybe more than you wanted, Richard, but we're just about to start. We're anxious to hear, very specifically what the local needs are, and we're anxious to come up with detailed plans on how to meet those needs in the very near future.
Yeah, that's fantastic, David. And thank you very much for the detailed explanation. I think it's exciting that we're, modeling some of these deployment strategies and sort of defining those as 5 or 6 rather than it's just all over the place. And quite honestly, having looked at this many times in many different areas of Eastern Kentucky, it sort of begs to a hybrid model that you build fiber where it makes sense to build fiber, and then in some cases it doesn't make sense to build beyond that, and you deploy fixed wireless and or other wireless to pick up some of those. So I think a lot of these areas are going to beg for somewhat of a hybrid model. Jamie, you back, sir?
He said he still has no audio.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's David and Lonnie. So
this is a good opportunity. Can we say whatever we want about Jamie now, Richard?
Yeah, we can. And he can just nod and smile and take that abuse. So
you're right on the hybrid approach. As I say, we're developing. I think there's going to be of solutions that will apply to most communities. I don't think there's 120 unique solutions in the state of Kentucky. I think there's 4 or 5 or 6, and we'll be prepared here very shortly in the next month or so to respond as communities are looking for more detail on how we can interconnect with the solution that makes the most sense in that neighborhood. Whether it's a commercial ISP or a local ISP or a fixed wireless solution, as you said, wireline or wireless will provide the middle mile fat pipe that's required to make those communities successful.
Absolutely. One of the very impressive discovery on my part was to learn about a lot of these small ISPs that exist throughout Eastern Kentucky. There are a lot of those, more than I ever dreamed were out there and providing service. And I think it will be an excellent relief to them to have that fat pipe, as you talked about, that large internet access feed or drain, if you will. And even if they have adequate connectivity today, having carrier diversity with open fiber coming in there is only a benefit. And so I think that's something that we should point out and talk about more, is the benefit to having that carrier diversity as opposed to being single home to a internet provider. Jamie's back.
I am. My apologies.
Great.
I think we need high-speed broadband in Lexington, Kentucky.
You must need that.
I apologize. I could not see or hear anyone, so
Right.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but what would you like me to do?
No, absolutely. You're a couple questions behind, so I mean it's going to be the Jamie Link show here coming up.
That's a very low bar.
No, I don't think so. So Jamie, if you would please explain what KCNA is doing to extend the middle mile network closer to the end users.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you put the map up, Richard, or not, but
I can't.
I'm happy to report that we have completed 99% of the fiber construction across the state. Even happier to report we're at 100% of fiber installation in Eastern Kentucky. We are currently working now to complete the rest of the infrastructure for the network. That's some more structures and equipment, and then we'll have testing to do to make sure all of the different rings. And for the audience, if you're somewhat familiar with the project, you'll know that we have 6 what we call rings around the Commonwealth, and each of those rings are connected to one another. And the purpose of that is to provide redundancy. If there should be a break in your area, the light will travel in the reverse direction to continue to provide service to all the residential and commercial customers. So there may be a very short outage, but it will be very, very short instead of a day or two. Should there be an accident or a storm, or I've learned very quickly that squirrels like to chew on cables. But right now, we're projecting that over the next 4 to 6 months, we will be completing rings in a progressive manner, and we will turn up rings as quickly as we possibly can. We have currently turned up what we call Ring 1A, which is basically from Louisville to Lexington to Covington. That's where our data centers are located. And we have currently migrated more than 150 state agencies over to the Kentucky Wired network. Our next focus is to turn up service in Ring 1B, which is Eastern Kentucky, Ring 2, which is Southeastern Kentucky, and Ring 3, which is South Central Kentucky. So we will be working with all due haste to get those rings activated and providing service. From KCNA's standpoint, we will be responsible for migrating the state office locations in those areas that serve the constituents across the Commonwealth. And then we'll work closely with David and Open Fiber Kentucky to work on the last mile connectivity. I would also point out that currently we are working with the Education Workforce Development Cabinet, the Kentucky Department of Education, and several other partners to develop as accurate as possible a map that we can use to identify where the most critical needs for service are across the state, and then working to deploy hotspots and interim service across the Commonwealth to provide service to primarily focused upon education and connecting K through 12 students as well as post-secondary education students, because we all know that there's a combination of in-class and virtual learning taking place right now, and some hybrid situations. But obviously the education with school in session is a critical need that we're trying to address as quickly as possible. And then we're also working on some other vital customers like health departments, and then working with David and Open Fiber again to start building relationships and getting service out to commercial customers and residential customers as quickly as we can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. So I want to
put that map up so everyone can see the map.
I can't.
Oh, you can't get it up?
No, sir. I cannot get my share screen is blocked out. So I've been trying, and I think Lauren's working in the background.
Well, and Richard, if I might, and for those that may not be as familiar, perhaps to describe it verbally, the analogy we like to use for the network is we're building, the Commonwealth is building the interstate highway fiber optic cable. So this fiber is installed all across the state, both hanging on poles or buried underground, depending upon the situation. And then we have off-ramps, if you will, into every county across the Commonwealth. And that middle mile fiber will terminate in a government building, or in a local government building like a courthouse, perhaps in a school facility, or some other location in that area. And then we also have some dedicated telecommunications huts that we will utilize, as well as what we call co-locations. That there's one in the Center for Rural Development, and they're located at KCTCS and other higher education facilities across the state. So that's where the middle mile will terminate in each county. And then we'll work with David and Open Fiber to then, and your local internet service providers, to then bring that service from those locations out into the communities.
Yeah, that's great. Anything, David, you want to add to that?
I think that's a pretty good summary. Again, if you look at the scope of the project, I don't know, but to have the capacity that is currently and finally constructed across all 120 counties in the Commonwealth is pretty amazing, honestly. So and if you look at, just looking at some of the comments that are popping up on the side, I think Dana's talking about, access in the Floyd and Pike County areas. I mean, that's right on Ring 2, and, we'll have to figure out what the solution is for that last mile, but there is an interstate highway running right through Floyd and Pike counties now as a result of the Kentucky Wired project. So it's not completed yet, but you're within pitching wedge distance of the best connectivity you can possibly have.
Yeah, absolutely. All new cable, all new electronics. Some of the state of the art equipment that is available today. So I mean that says a lot.
And Richard, in the comments, our information officer, Randy Lutke, has posted our website, the KCNA or Kentucky Wired website, and the service map is located at that website.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and I would love for them to see it. There's something going on that doesn't allow me to share my screen, so I can't do that. So you had talked earlier, Jamie, about the K through 12 and the importance of trying to get affordable and adequate broadband out to these homes, so these students can do their homework if we're back in somewhat of a normal, whatever normal looks like in these days. But so the next thing I want to talk about, and this is really all panelists, I'd like to pose this out to all the panelists. Let's speak about the importance of broadband mapping. So first, what is broadband mapping, and what the importance of that? Why do we need to have accurate broadband mapping? And I guess Lonnie, if you want to kick us off.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. There's some mapping that comes out on the FCC's metrics that show that, if you look across the maps on the FCC website, it says that we've got coverage pretty much everywhere. And in a lot of instances, that's true. All of you that are on here, in the rural areas, it can get very sparse. So in the downtown areas and a lot of these communities, yes, you have really good internet. And I'm not trying to throw stones at any provider, please, because we want to work with all providers. But so what we're trying to do, we've partnered up with a company called Geo Partners, that actually does crowdsourcing mapping. And what you can do is hook up to one of these links, and if you're at your home, you type in the address where you are, and it'll show the actual speed that you have in your location. Right now, we're doing one in Harlan County. They've done Scott County and a couple of other counties in the Commonwealth, but this actually shows what your actual speed is. If the folks put it in, it actually even can show what it costs. So what we're trying to do is make certain that when we put high-speed internet out there, it's affordable. That's going to be one of the big keys, is that you get affordable access. Because again, it's just like if you don't have last mile, it doesn't work. Well, if you can't afford it, it doesn't work. So we're trying to get actual speeds out there so that when we go into this with Jamie, with David, with the Commonwealth as a whole, we know truly what communities, and then we can address it once we know what the actual lay of the land is.
One just additional comment to Lonnie's comment. This generation of mapping that we're engaging in currently is in fact next generation mapping. So it's one thing to say there's coverage in a particular county. It's another to know very specifically on a, if you will, a house by house basis where that coverage exists, how far off the freeway the coverage exists, if it exists, over the next ridge or in the next holler. So, I think next gen mapping is really critical. There's an old engineering adage, which I know you can relate to, which is measurement is the first step toward improvement. And I think next gen mapping gets us to a measurement that's actionable and allows us to identify where the highest priority pain points are. And so to the extent that we can encourage everybody to participate in those programs, it's going to have a great benefit very, very quickly.
Yeah, if I could echo my two colleagues, I think we all know you can't address a problem until you know what the problem is. So getting that identification of the need is critical for how we deploy our resources to address those needs. And I've had several people call and say, I remember the Kentucky Wired trucks installing the cable right down my street, but I can't connect. It's not like a water main that you can just go plug into the cable. So that's where we encourage and we want to work with the local ISPs, the large telecommunications companies, any partners that we can bring to bear on this, because it's going to take all of us to address this problem across our state. And I think too that I've seen some articles in areas where broadband has been sparse or non-existent. It may incentivize entrepreneurship, or it may incentivize cooperative agreements between counties or various companies to deploy service. Obviously, there's an economic equation that has to be addressed, and that's where the affordability comes in, because I think one of the goals behind the Kentucky Wired project was for the Commonwealth to install this middle mile network to provide that basic infrastructure from which the local providers can then expand service out into their communities and their counties. So we certainly want to encourage everyone to communicate with your local government, with your local ISPs that you currently have. And we're looking at all, and I don't want to speak for David, but I think logically we're looking at all options for how to get service out to customers, whether that be fiber to your house or to your business, whether it be a fixed wireless solution. I was just on a call yesterday. You may have read about SpaceX is looking at deploying low-level satellites to provide broadband service, and there's other companies that provide satellite service. So, and who knows what new technology may come down the pike. So, this fiber backbone that we're building and have built is viewed as being a decades-long piece of infrastructure that. With it, if it's a wireless solution, it has to get onto fiber at some point because of capacity. So we want to encourage all partners to join us in expanding service out across the state.
Jamie, are you aware of another state to take on some endeavor like this?
I would ask for input from David and Lonnie as well, but to my knowledge, Kentucky is the only state in the U.S. that has built a statewide comprehensive fiber backbone. I believe some other states have built regional rings and some communities. We know there are gigabit communities that have built it for their community alone. But the vision of this project was to provide this basic infrastructure statewide, and then to expand it out through the last mile.
Right. So thank you for that, Jamie. We had a couple good questions that came in. One is from someone named TJ Meadows, and TJ asks, at what distance, for lack of a better term, are last mile ISPs willing to invest? Is it 5 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles out from the middle mile to the endpoints? And David, if you might be good for you to address that.
Sure, I'll start. I mean, certainly a great question, because I think there is still there can still be confusion about getting. We'll come to the community. We're not in the community. We still need a partner in the community to aggregate up demand and to provide the endpoints for the interstate highway that Jamie talked about. So I think the question about how far will an ISP be willing to build, it's certainly got economic implications. I think depending on the density of the community, how many households per mile, that's probably a different answer depending on how dense the community is. As you said earlier, Richard, it could be that a fixed wireless solution is the best bet, the most cost effective and the most bandwidth effective, efficient solution for a particular community. In a denser community, probably a more traditional cable infrastructure, for example, might be the right answer. So I think the answer to TJ's question is community dependent, and it's dependent on proximity to the internet on-ramp, which, again, as we've been talking about, is probably very close. but it's also dependent on the density of the particular community and the ISP economics. So the denser you get, the more options there are. I think as in highly rural communities, fixed wireless is going to be a big part of the play.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Well,
Go ahead, Jamie.
I just wanted to jump in. Randy Lutke, our public information officer, kindly posted another note that the Kentucky Wired project is an open access infrastructure. So working with Open Fiber, any ISP or local provider can gain access to this network, which is a first in the nation. Secondly, I failed to point out, but I want to emphasize that one of the key tenets of this project from Congressman Rogers and Governor Beshear is that there is a public purpose to this project. This isn't a for-profit entity. The goal was to bring service all across the state, and particularly to the unserved and underserved areas of our state. So we will look for every option we can, and of course, working with the Center for Rural Development, the Appalachian Regional Commission, the USDA Rural Development. We will look for various funding sources that we might be able to find that can help proliferate that last mile expansion. But everything's on the table right now because the need is so critical in so many different areas that we want to explore every option we have available to us.
Yeah, great. Excellent follow-up there. We had a couple more questions come in, and I'd like to preface this particular question by Lonnie had addressed one of the programs that we want to roll out, which is Centerlink's access nodes. And I think a little more explanation on that, not answer Sam Wright's question, but those Centerlink access nodes are designed to extend that middle mile even closer to the communities. And so we have plans for many of those in conjunction with David and Jamie, whether it's on the state government side or the commercial side, to deploy those out so that there are additional access points. There are 120 counties in this state, and there are currently only 33 nodes, if you will, on the network. So you can look at that in general and say that screams for additional access points. But to that, Sam Wright says, I'm confused about something. From what I understand, companies can only connect in at a public node, but a second ago, they seem to be saying that they could connect at anchors or CAIs.
Jamie? I'm not sure what a CAI is personally. I don't know, David, if you have any
community anchor institutions. Yeah, community anchor institutions. I should have said it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm not a network engineer, so that's a little out of my lane, I believe. But we certainly want to find a way to make the network as accessible as possible. And again, we'll be working with Open Fiber and the local providers to gain that access at the closest possible points.
Right. Okay. No, I think that answers that. I don't know, Lonnie, do you want to say anything else about the access nodes?
Well, what we're trying to do, and actually Dave may want to weigh in here as well, but what we're trying to do is get as many access points as we can into the middle mile network. That's what it was built for. Now, obviously, operationally, you have to make certain that that's their number one priority, that you have the redundancy and it's operational. But we want to try to get as many different locations that we can for folks to have the opportunity to hook into the network. So, Dave, anything you want to add to that?
Sure. I mean, it's a question of building the network as efficiently as possible. And that, I don't say that in a way to impede progress or to slow things down. And if an efficient network build, in fact, will get service to folks faster than an inefficient network build. And so, that's all in the interest of expediting delivery of the fat pipe that we're talking about to those communities. It differs, whether there's a access node required or in the architecture or not. Again, differs on the particular community and the requirements of that community. I will say, and I'll say it again before we're finished, the we are already in communication with a number of communities who are trying to work through their options. Some are pretty well downstream on thinking about how they're going to approach that last mile solution. Others are still, I would say, in the brainstorming stage. We're happy to have both those conversations. And in fact, we are in the Open Fiber Kentucky's in the virtual exhibit hall, and we're happy to, field and in fact solicit those sorts of inquiries so we can start talking specifics as we get closer to in-service.
Yeah.
Well, and to Dave's point, I mean, we got to do this as economical as possible. There isn't an unlimited supply of funding to go out and go into every single little hill and holler and community. So we've got to do it as best we can and try to get the biggest bang for the buck and still not leave anyone out. So.
Right. And I think a lot of that goes back to the broadband mapping we talked about earlier. I mean, Jamie said it best. You can't attack a problem unless you know where it exists. And, when we kicked the tires on that, on Harlan County, we were actually pleasantly surprised, and Jamie and I talked about that this morning. We were pleasantly surprised to see there were some providers out there that I didn't realize had excellent service and providing, broadband. So not only is it going to show us where there's issues, but it's going to show us where they've got good providers too. So with that, there's another question that's come in, and Amy Kennedy asks, will Kentucky Wired help the contact and negotiate connections into the community from the middle mile? And she says we don't have any options of providers in the area currently.
Speaking on behalf of KCNA and Kentucky Wired, we will help anyone we can to gain connectivity. We'll work with, again, David and Open Fiber to help identify what the availability is in that area. And again, I'll go back to perhaps with this new infrastructure in place, it becomes more economically feasible for current providers, or perhaps if there's no provider in an area, for a provider to start up and start providing service to citizens of that area. So feel free to contact. You can go to our website, which is KentuckyWired.com, and you can reach out to us, or I'm sorry, it's KentuckyWired.ky.gov. That is KCNA. And I will be happy to take any requests, any concerns, and then I'll work with David and our other colleagues to see what we can do to address that need.
As I said, we're already receiving from Jamie on a fairly regular basis inquiries, are working to reach out. As I said, some folks, say, here's what we want to do. How can you help us execute our plan? There are other folks who are saying, we don't know what we want to do. Can you help us with that? We think, again, that solution, that portfolio solutions is limited. It's 5 or 6 different ways to approach the problem, which is good. It's not a blank sheet of paper. And I would again encourage people to visit us in the virtual exhibit hall because folks are standing by to take those sorts of inquiries. We're happy to have that conversation. And look forward to the partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, we have
and let me add while Richard's looking, for the attendees in the session, I don't have any way to put it on the screen, but my email address is Jamie, Jamie Jamie.link at ky.gov. Feel free to send me an email, and we'll make every effort to address your questions and your needs.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm scrolling through, Lauren. I'm not seeing many more questions. So if you have questions for the attendees, please type them in the chat, and we will get those questions out there to the panelists and have them respond. I don't see any other ones coming in.
So let me hit that point just one more time, because it's come up a couple different times on last mile providers. I will tell you that because the middle mile infrastructure is built, and because we're building into some of the communities, there are some additional providers that are looking at expanding their footprint just because they don't have the CapEx expense that they would have had to build it from scratch. So for your communities that are struggling, there are some others that are looking at it. Again, we built this as an open access network. That's exactly what it was, so that anybody could get online or get on the network, and that's the way we want to try to keep it, is make certain that everybody has access to the internet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we talked about efficiently deploying. David had mentioned the economies of scale in certain areas. If you have a very dense population, it makes it easier and justifiable. You can build a business case to go in those areas. But I think we also want to look at where there's density in pockets, right? And I think there's a way to pick those off. Technology can allow us to pick off those pockets of density where you have, neighborhoods, for instance, or hollers. In the case of Eastern Kentucky, where we're at, you can pick up those hollers and then transport that back to the greater network, and we can look at those on a case-by-case individual basis. I think and that's what we absolutely intend to do. I know Lonnie is sort of charged me with that in some of these cases. So we're gonna have some folks out in the field looking for those pockets of opportunity, so we can craft and create solutions for those pockets.
I want to make sure that my density comment was well heard, because I would hate to be sitting in Eastern Kentucky and saying, oh, here we go again. It has to be a dense population before I'm going to get service, and this is not that, right? I mean, that's why the interstate highway analogy is so appealing, because interstate highway is very close to your community right now. It's very close to your pocket. It's very close to your ridge or holler, right? So the bulk of the heavy lifting gets done because the interstate system is built. Now we're talking about building the off ramps, right? So I think that's a great analogy, because it's not if I'm isolated, I don't have service. It's because the interstate highway is nearby, I can get to where I'm going faster, right?
Okay. Yeah, excellent feedback on that, and I appreciate you clarifying, because we don't want to discourage folks that, hey, if I'm not in a neighborhood, I'm not going to get this. That we want to work with the providers. You want to work with the providers that are there to help them expand their networks, as well as pick up pockets where we can otherwise. So we've got another question that popped in, and this is a good question. Could you expound on the state agencies that are already using this network, and about how many have been done so far, and how are they? What's been their experience?
That's a great question from Dan. The state agencies that are included in this basically cover every cabinet in Kentucky state government, from child support offices to the Department for Community-Based Services, from state police offices to transportation cabinet offices, to county clerk offices, and various and sundry state agencies. I don't know. We've now connected, I believe, more than 150. We have about 14 more to go in Ring 1A. Then as soon as the ring is available in Ring 1B, we'll start moving agencies over there. But we are working with the Commonwealth Office of Technology to migrate those state agencies over to the Kentucky Wired network. And what we're finding from the agencies that have been connected, the Kentucky Wired network is providing a minimum of 5 times faster speed than they currently had. And the staff and their ability to service the customers of those offices has been greatly improved, and the feedback has been nothing but positive from those employees staffing those offices. So I think we've all experienced the dreaded spinning circle on your computer screen sometimes. So we're alleviating or eliminating that in all of these locations. So right now everything's going exactly according to plan, and we envision that continuing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I appreciate Dan asking that question. And that's great to know that they're getting 5 times what they were before. A friend of mine told me years ago, he's like, one thing you're never going to hear me say is I have enough bandwidth.
Right.
Yeah. So, folks, we have about 5 minutes. Nope, I'll take that back. So we're looking for questions. If we've got any questions, please.
Sam posted on there.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, Sam Wright is asking, is there a minimum or maximum speed that a company needs to sign up for to connect directly to the network? I'm going to post here Rich Lockard's email address as well. Rich is on the Open Fiber Kentucky team and is responsible for our product suite. And in fact, the cement is being poured and we're just waiting for it to cure. But he loves to have those sorts of conversations with businesses. And so Sam and others on the call, I'd encourage you to reach out to Rich either via the email that I'm about to post or in the virtual exhibit hall and ask that question. He can give you a very specific answers depending on your need.
Yeah, that's great. So I believe if I understand it correctly, David, the connections off of the open fiber network will be all 10 gig. Now, you may not be subscribing to an entire 10 gig of bandwidth, but it was my understanding, and I could be incorrect, that all the connections on this network will be 10 gig.
Again, it's a question of subscription. We're certainly going to step that down, and we'll have products and price points much lower than that, obviously. So.
Oh yeah. But the physical connectivity, or what we used to call the clocking, it would clock at 10 gig, and then you would pay for whatever you used, which I think is, it's great in that it future-proofs the network. So at some point, you're literally just dialing up the bandwidth as you need it.
Exactly right. I mean, this is, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, this is exciting to have, greenfield, state-of-the-art technology, and by the way, homogeneous technology across the network, right? Which is also nice. Richard, in your experience, it's sometimes challenging, not usually fun to try to cobble together, different technologies and operating systems and platforms and provisioning, et cetera. So it's fun to be able to start with a fresh sheet of paper. With current technology.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
I will point out that one of the byproducts of telecommuting that a lot of us have probably had to experience is that some of us have four-legged office assistants that help us with our daily work. And I just wanted to introduce everyone to Walter here, who is helping me with the breakout session today.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Hello to Walter. So let's see. I'm looking for additional questions.
I think Richard Hildreth has one.
Okay.
On fixed wireless, yes.
Yeah.
Lauren, I guess, hasn't been able to get it to me yet.
Richard Hildreth is asking. He's saying he's not familiar with fixed wireless. What problem does it solve, and what kind of speeds does it provide?
Yeah, so there are lots of options out there for radios. There is Radwin has products out there. I mean, Telrad. There's Cambian has an excellent product out there right now. That's you can get 100 meg and a lot of density on those antennas. So fixed wireless is essentially the name defines what the product is. It's not mobile wireless, so it's not your handheld like your 4G telephone. It's a fixed antenna and it could be on a monopole antenna, or it could be on the side of a water tank for that matter. In a lot of these communities, they're looking at their current infrastructure, what they currently have, like the water towers and things, that they can put up some antennas on that would be able to provide services. So you would have a fixed antenna on, let's say, a water tank, and then you would have a fixed antenna at your business or your home. And as long as most of this works via line of sight. So as long as that business or home can see that antenna on the water tower, you can get service. And one of the beauties of electronics is the prices always go down. I mean, and that's, you see it with your flat screen TVs, right? I mean, even if you're not in the business like we've been, look at your flat screen TV. They used to be 10 grand and now they're, $200. So, that electronics eventually gets cheaper. So the radios are not that expensive, and that's good because when there's technology upgrades, you can just literally throw them in the dumpster and go get new ones. Obviously within an amount of paid off the product, but yeah.
And Richard Hildreth, to Richard Taylor's point, the very specific problem that fixed wireless solves is an economic problem for the service provider, right? So
Right.
it's to get back to our conversation about density, it's expensive to run cable, physical wires to houses that are distant or spread out. So fixed wireless uses wireless, no wires, no cost associated with wires, and it solves a problem to a large extent in terms of being able to provide service profitably. And as Richard said, the technology has advanced to a point where you can have a lot of people connected to a single antenna, and the economics of the fixed wireless solutions and the bandwidth available for providing fixed wireless solutions is much greater today than it was even a few years ago.
Right.
And you can get great speeds on fixed wireless as well. I think that's been one of the concerns, that you couldn't get the speeds, but you definitely can, depending on the equipment that's installed. So.
That's right. That absolutely is. And then Dexter asks, I'm getting these from Lauren, do they have home antennas? Absolutely, they have home antennas. There's a product that I'm familiar with. It's Ubiquity, and a lot of folks have their access points. And Ubiquity has a little product called a Rocket, and we've put those in. I've put those in many times, and they're like $100, and that's the antenna. That's what you use. So, yeah, they have them, and they're relatively inexpensive.
Dave, thank you for joining us. I know you had another commitment, but thank you very much for joining. Any last words before you have to bug out?
I'll finish where I started. I'm super impressed with SOAR's mission and CDC's mission. So congratulations to y'all. We're looking forward to partnering with folks in Eastern Kentucky to improve the service. Happy to be part of the Kentucky Wired family, and again, would encourage people to visit on the virtual exhibit hall to get more specifics about the service. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Richard, let me talk, if I could, just a minute. Did we lose Richard?
No.
About some of the projects that we've done, because we want to make certain that folks throughout the entire region are aware that they can get service. We did a feasibility study project in Pike County. That's a very comprehensive study for Pike County. The 5 counties that make up the Pine Mountain Industrial Development Authority, which are Bell, Harlan, Knox, Letcher, and Whitley. We've put some funding toward that one to do a feasibility study. We're working with Moorhead and Rowan County on a needs assessment and a feasibility study, working with Elkhorn City on a feasibility study. We have a new installation in Powell County at Slade, a last mile installation. We're working with the Valley Oak Technology Park in Pulaski County to try to expand service. So, and we've actually done training of fiber splicing schools and so forth. So any of these services that you need in your community, please reach out to us. You have my email address. You've got Jamie's email address, and Richard, I'm sure we'll get his in there before we're done. But reach out to us. We want to make sure that we help you. We want to do everything we can to make you successful in your home communities.
Yep, thank you for that, Lonnie. That's great.
And Richard, as we wind down on our time, like David, I'd like to just reiterate the commitment and the importance of this infrastructure. I think much like the 1930s when the federal government did the rural electrification program, I think broadband's time has come. And Congressman Rogers and Governor Beshear had the vision, and it's been a challenging project, no doubt. but we're on the cusp of getting it completed, and certainly COVID-19 has highlighted the critical need for broadband service for education and healthcare, for economic development and business, and also for quality of life issues. We don't want to overemphasize Netflix and Amazon Prime and YouTube TV and those things, but those are important to people's lives. But certainly education and healthcare at the top of the list, and the public purpose of this project is very important. So we stand ready to work with Open Fiber and with the Center for Rural Development to expand broadband into Eastern Kentucky and the Appalachian Regional Commission counties. And please touch base with us. We want to help any way we can. And it won't happen overnight. Unfortunately, it's not like flipping a light switch. But the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and we've taken a big step, I believe. So we look forward to working with CRD and all the other partners there in East Kentucky to get this service out to everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Jamie. We appreciate that, and we look forward to working with you. And I mean, we've got lots of ideas, and we're full of energy and want to get moving too. So, Jamie, you think it's appropriate to kind of talk about Mary Pat's, the quick reaction team that the governor had Mary Pat take on?
Sure. And in the few minutes we have left, the governor's office and the Education Workforce Development Cabinet, along with the Kentucky Department of Education, have recognized the vital need of Kentucky students to be able to connect to the internet in order to get their classwork, both to receive it and to complete it and upload it. So we are looking as quickly as possible, and the governor has committed resources to try to address the most immediate needs in the areas that need it the most. And we're looking at what some other states have done. And our goal right now, as Richard has pointed out, is to map as quickly as possible where the most critical needs are. And then we'll work with local internet service providers and local governments and local school districts to determine the best place to place hotspots where students can come and connect to the internet and get their school work completed. While on a parallel path, we continue to work on the longer term solutions for more permanent service.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I'm just, I'm very pleased to I'd be a part of that, first off, and
Yes.
try to help steer some of that and use some of my experience to, participate.
There are a lot of people working on this very issue.
That's right.
Last little update here before we hang up. I'm sure most of you know by now, Jared Arnett is leaving SOAR, and Jared has been a great leader for SOAR over the last 6 or 7 years, whatever it is. Jared, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact amount of time, but we do appreciate your leadership. We appreciate Josh and all of his efforts in trying to get this session set up. We appreciate Lauren and Jeff for helping us moderate this session. And I'm so excited that they announced Colby Hall as the new executive director of SOAR today. All of those, are very positive things. Reach out to any of us, including the folks at SOAR, any way that we can help you on getting last mile broadband access into your community.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great.
And Richard, thank you for moderating.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
And I appreciate all the attendees as well.
You bet. Yeah, we had, I think 50 there at one point, so that's a good turnout.
Mm-hmm. And Lauren, thank you for hanging in there with us.
Yes, thank you so much. We kind of skinned our knee a little bit in the beginning, but we got it going just fine. So yeah, technology and video conferencing. I mean, it's just I think someone said the other day, I think everyone's become an entry-level IT person here in the last 9 months.
And Jamie, tell Walter thanks for joining. So
yeah,
Absolutely. He worked hard today. Yes.
That's right.
Thanks to everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye.